this part of the evening is the opportunity for you to bring up topics for discussion, ask questions. So without further ado, it's your turn. And just in case you're wondering, I haven't kept track, but I probably should keep track of the number of questions that are prefaced by, "This is probably a dumb question, but..."
And
but
there are none.
There are none. Yeah. Haven't found one that really was a dumb question, so... yes? Yeah. For the benefit of...
We have a microphone runner.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello.
I think in the very beginning when you first started speaking, I wasn't quite knowing you were talking about letting things go, whether you were saying that was something that was, for lack of a better word, feasible or something that we strive for, but that I guess I was a little
Letting
muddled
things
on.
go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, now I have to reconstruct what I might have said, which is always dangerous territory.
Clock is ticking.
So then what I'll probably do instead is make something up about what I think I should have said.
Sure.
So,
I'll roll with that.
There are a couple of contexts in which we would talk about letting go of things. And the first one that comes to mind in the context of calm abiding is when we find ourselves distracted, the simple letting go of that. And that, in a way, doesn't even have to be sort of a separate step. It's just returning to the object of meditation, or returning to the meditation. So we don't need to go step one, do this, stop doing this, then do something else. We just turn back. The other context for that I would use the term letting go is in life, when we have particular patterns or habits that we've identified are not helpful, then to cultivate in the same way that we cultivate the ability to let go of the distraction, we let go of the pattern that's arising and return to, in that case, it's usually a bit more complicated because we're usually have our one-person band is drumming with feelings and telling stories, and our body is doing something. So checking in so that we can notice that and then just let go of the part that sustains it. And usually it's the story. Usually it's the story. Just don't feed the story anymore. And if we have, and depending on the particular circumstance, it may be that there is another story that we've identified as another one that is an antidote to whatever is coming up. I've identified my anger and my sense of resentment as not helpful for me or for others. And then just something like, as Zopa was talking about, there's the phrase, same as me. If we really just reflect on the similarity that we have with all beings in terms of our wish for happiness and our habits of getting ourselves into trouble, to emphasize the similarity as opposed to the difference. So that's just one example, not necessarily the one that would be useful in any particular situation, but it's pretty helpful because underneath it there is a very deep similarity in our aspirations and our both our fears and our wishes. So does that help clarify it a bit? Or, oh, okay, all right. All right. So I'm just guessing at what context it might have been, and what was your actual concern in that? I'm kind of interested in trying to kind of hear a little bit more.
I think that when you were speaking, it was more along the lines of maybe I was hearing, or it was the wording where letting go was something that was, we can try to do that, but there's some sort of, even letting go of the concept of letting go, or something along the lines. I didn't. So I kind of thought you were bringing something new to the table for me as far as that is concerned. So, but I think in how you just went about explaining that, it resonated. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Matt. And what was your name? I didn't. Ian. Okay. Good to meet you, Ian. Yeah. Matt.
Hi, thanks for having me here. So I've been reading that an analogy for karma is we put wood on a fire, and we just keep adding to this fire. How?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So
right
I've been reading that the idea of karma, there's an analogy for how we stoke the fire. It's just good karma, bad karma. We just keep putting wood on the fire.
Mhm.
And ultimately nibbana is taking that fire away. So how does ethical living diminish you stoking that fire and allow you?
It stokes the fire in a way that is fruitful in the long run. The analogy is kind of helpful in one regard, but it's not so helpful in another regard. In the sense that all we do does create momentum. Then sort of the notion of the fire being this, it's the momentum, it's the continued energy that we keep on stoking more. But in terms of understanding what's useful and what's not useful, then there's that's actually kind of you have to sort of switch metaphors in midstream, kind of get something else going, in order to get that. And there are different ways that liberation is talked about. And one of them is this kind of extinction of karma. But that's in the Mahayana tradition. That's not placed kind of central. The bodhisattva activity, the bodhisattva intention, the intention to basically be in whatever circumstances arise for the benefit of others, to bring about the liberation of others, that's actually the core. So, but there is a little funny cycle in that. There's often it's said the bodhisattva takes the vow not to actually kind of step off, not to attain this kind of extinction of karma, in order to be around for the benefit of beings. But in order to be of deep benefit of beings, you have to have profound enlightenment. But probably one of the best ingredients for actually that step is that wish not to do it for yourself. But a lot of this stuff, for me, this is entirely theoretical. I am not speaking from any personal experience about nirvana or liberation. So, but but I think the notion of that we stoke the fire of karma no matter what we're doing. But it's just, what are we going to cook? What are we going to cook on the fire? you have something to add, Sopa or Dora?
Not right now. Well, I just think that was the thing the fire didn't do for me was it was lumping everything into one. The whole Dharma is pretty much about accumulating positive momentum, as to use that word as well, and yes, there is some concept of, let's say, lessening karma, I guess, but the idea that, you know, you can build up negative tendencies or you can build up positive tendencies, and yeah, so it's worth making that distinction. And that's what we often talk about, how we have to ride the horse we're on. And so what we have is, you know, imperfect, or we're in a sense, not in the deepest way. In the deepest way, we're perfect. But we have, you know, the kleshas, we have the angers and the desire and the pride and jealousy and all of that. But in there, we have the capacity to train our minds in a positive direction that helps to lessen those harmful tendencies. And so part of it is a stopping of doing, you know, of feeding those tendencies, but another part is cultivating positive tendencies. But then in the end, the theoretical end, that's, as Bill said, I can't, hard to speak to that. But maybe there's no fuel then, but that's a long ways away.
So I want to go back to the kind of the first thing you said, Matt, about ethics. And if you just think of your own experience, when I bring my own experience forward, even I say a harsh word to someone, it stirs me up. It might cause me regret for a decade. If I steal something, that stirs me up. Even I get away with it. So those are unethical actions, and they stir our mind up, and they can set in motion habits of doing it again and again and again. So we're always going to be feeding that fire of, as both Bill and Dora have said, of destructive energy, and that will harm ourselves and others. So that's why ethics is considered one of the most basic things in pretty much every religion. I mean, you know, don't steal, don't lie, don't kill, don't do unwise sexual behavior, don't use intoxicants to the point where you do all those things because you've lost track. This is because we have to calm down. As Bill was saying earlier when he was leading our calm abiding, we have to calm down before we can even see what's going on in our own selves, much less, how can I assist you if I can't even, I'm in a turmoil, you know, that I've created. So I always go back to the Four Noble Truths of the Buddha, and the first one is suffering exists. That's not so hard to see. Sometimes we don't like to look and we say, no, my life's great, but kind of glossy, right? Glossing over. But the cause of suffering, the second truth is, where does it come from? I'm making it up. I'm doing it, you know, and therefore it's a powerful thought because I can stop it. Also, I can learn and do practices that end it. But the end in the Mahayana path, as Bill was pointing out, so clearly the end isn't some kind of personal peace. Everything's extinguished. They call it extinguishing the fire. That is a Buddhist path. But the Mahayana path is, it's not ever extinguished. You take a bodhisattva vow to always be available to end the suffering of every single being, countless beings, like the Great Vow. You come from the Heart of Wisdom group, so the Great Vow. You know, kleshas are endless. I vow to end them all. Beings are limitless. I vow to free them all. Crazy, huh? But good crazy.
Judith.
It's a Nindro question. Is that okay?
We'll find out.
When I do shamatha, it seems to really support my life in a very positive way.
Mm-hmm.
When I do other practices, like Nindro, for example, it seems that my life becomes less stable. It doesn't seem to support my worldly activities, my work, all of that. And so I'm wondering if you could say something about that. Is that typical? Is there some something in that I could see or understand?
First, defining the term Ngondro. Judith is referring to a whole set of practices, sometimes called the preliminary practices or the foundation, special foundations, and they're related to practices in particular that one would do if one wanted to go more deeply into the methods of Vajrayana practice. I think the question is more personal than general. And with the simplicity of calm abiding, we're all engaged in the method in pretty much the same way. We rest with the object of meditation. We wander. We return. There's all kinds of rich, unique stuff going on in that, but it's fairly simple. When we get to the foundational practices, where we're looking more particularly at how it is that we take refuge in things, and really cultivating a strong sense of taking refuge, a deep sense of cultivating bodhicitta, cultivating the sense of connection to others, cultivating the deep wish for them to be free, and so on. There are more details, and there are more ways that our personal circumstances play in that. And particularly, we get onto the purification practice. That becomes very very particular to our own situation. So there are ways in which our practice to have the practice of profound generosity, the mandala offering. Exactly how are we attached? Exactly how do we relate to all the things that we experience in life? How do we hold on to things? It becomes more detailed. So then it does become kind of a personal question. And sometimes these things, when we wrestle with them, and mind training is the same way. mind training could also be very like, that could be a real standing on the icy sloped sidewalk and finding your feet flying out from underneath you, because there are a lot of challenging questions in there. And so they can, when we're really challenged, then we can find the way I hoped I could structure my life in general is challenged, because there's this principle or that principle or another one that I've held on to as central, and now I actually have to look at it more deeply. So I think it's very particular, but it's rich. I think that you touch on something that's quite rich, but it's, I think, best examined in the particulars, and that's actually where it's good to have some kind of connection with somebody that you can talk to about the practice.
Like one-on-one, I think he's saying. But I'm curious, Judith, support. It doesn't support. What's the background on that? What's the expectation of support? And it's interesting to me that you said it doesn't support my worldly, what did you say, worldly activities. How do you know it doesn't support them? And I don't know how deep you want to get, because it is kind of one-on-one, but I don't know what that means, doesn't support them.
I guess I don't have an expectation that the practices will, make me a better worker, or I'll earn more money, or, buy a better house, or cultivate that kind of thing. But those I'm involved in probably all of that, and so I noticed that shamatha is just absolutely, it's really, I don't really struggle with a lot of stress, and it's the practice. There's a sense of openness and joy more in my life now than there used to be before the practice, so that's there. So I guess it's a comparison, right? Because I have that experience of that, and then there's this experience of when I'm involved in these other practices, my emotions are a little less stable. I get a cold or something, or things start to just kind of feel, even at my work, that there's some energy in me that's moving when stillness would be more supportive.
Yeah. Could be good, could be bad. Yeah, that's one of the things that Michael often talks about, is that with calm abiding, it is actually, it's easy to see how the skill of paying attention and being relaxed and present, it's easy to see how that skill can provide all kinds of ordinary benefits. And then it's easy, and it's actually sold widely. They kind of become a better whatever, learn some meditation. And the fact is, you can do that. But if you really want to press deeply into the practice and go beyond the kind of the career goals or whatever, the X, Y, or Z that we find some benefits in, if we want to go beyond that, if we want to go deeper into the practice beyond the point where I'm happy now that this is turning out more favorably. I'm happy in my happiness, my well-being is working out because I can now depend on the circumstance more, because I'm a better whatever. If we want to go deeper than that kind of dependent well-being, things get shaken up. Things get shaken up. And we do have to let go of certain kinds of things. And depending upon our capacity, we might have to let go of quite a bit. It's interesting. I was very struck when I first heard this little bit. It's the teaching about the practitioners of three capacities, of the most skilled capacity, sort of intermediate capacity, and just can kind of barely make it work capacity. And I always thought that, like an individual, like the stories of the great practitioners like Milarepa, who went off and spent, all this time in caves. This must be the example of the practitioner with great capacity. The teaching actually turned that on its head. It said it's only the practitioner with really supreme capacity who can deeply practice in the midst of ordinary life, because there's so many variables coming at us. There's so much going on. We have so many habits that are intertwined in that. So it actually takes a very deep capacity. Intermediate capacity, perhaps supported by some circumstance like a monastery, where there are a lot of other people also involved. But for those of us who are really actually, extended retreat is the laboratory in which, where we've actually set aside kind of set aside a lot of the pressures. So you kind of put them off to the side. But if we're going to go through our ordinary life and do some of the practices that challenge us to go deeper, things will start to dance around a little bit. So.
Geshe Jumpa Tekchok, who was a very well-renowned Gelug scholar, practitioner, was asked this question similar to it. It took me a while to remember that it was the question. And he's just said very clearly that as people go deeper in their practice, you're going to get shaken, and you should see it as a good thing, unless you just don't want to change very much. In other words, he was very encouraging. It's a sign of change. This is not about, I will just say what another teacher said. You can do Dharma Light, L-I-T-E. Like what are the products, Coke Light or Sprite Light or whatever. And that's fine. It's a good thing in the world. But if you want to go deeper, it's going to shake you. I mean, because it's a dismantling of the false ego, which thinks it's separate, thinks it's got everything lined up, does not expect uncertainty or dissatisfaction or surprises. That's all shaking up the false ego. So we can be very happy when it happens. We can always also slow it down a little, make sure that it's not pushing us over the edge. And as Bill said, it depends on your container. I mean, I know for myself and a small group, we did all of our purification practice smack down in 90 days in a monastery with the teacher right there. And man, you went through everything. You were cooked, It was like you put yourself in there to be cooked. It was like, we're not going anywhere else. We're going to do this. And what made it work is the teacher, the solitude, the group, the lineage, being connected to a strong lineage. And but it's not an easy way to do it. And what's happening here a lot with Nundro is people are rather courageously taking that stuff into your, trying to do it while you work and while you're with a family and such. So yeah, it's designed to shake you up. It's supposed to. So thank you for that question, but really, good on you. You're shaking up a little.
Alesh.
A simple one. A simple one. Mundane. What is the balance between, like, I got a really bad pain in my lower spine today, and I remember Julia once told us, well, you should a little bit play with the pain. You can put your mind on the pain and stuff. Where's the balance
Between
the when it's not helping and it's still helping? If you can, you know, between the.
How far should you go with that?
Yeah.
How hard to push.
Well, yes and no. It's not quite the same question. There are some similarities, but I think you have to know your own physical situation quite well, and there's some situations where we know, yes, I'm a little stiff or a little achy, but it really doesn't matter if I get up and move or stretch. I'm still a little stiff and achy, and it actually doesn't get any worse if I just sit. In which case, then to bring your attention just to that discomfort is actually it's a very skillful practice, just to really be with it and to let go. And here, go back to the word let go, to let go of the stories attached to it, so that you can actually see the flow of experiences that are within that, as opposed to just, there it is again. But if you have some kind of physical situation where you know that a particular meditation posture actually aggravates and causes injury, stop. There are the four postures, official postures for meditation: standing up, sitting, lying down, and walking. So here we might find it a little some social discomfort if we shift positions. It might be actually just a little bit disruptive if we start walking around. But lying down, this is official permission to take 2 cushions and lie down.
Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, I might do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the social milieu. It's also a place. I don't want to disturb anybody, right? So I don't want to move, and I need to move. You know, they are too advanced, but people like me, they know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And we all have to admit that, well, most of us, that we have our Dharma reputation to protect. And we can laugh at it, you know. Yeah. I mean, so many times I'm like, what do I look like up here? And if I sit on a bench or a cushion, I mean, it's just silly stuff in the mind. It's another thing to let go of. But it's good to see it. So, you know, if I always sit on the floor. Now I'm going to sit in a chair. I must be, slacking, you know, and even lay down. Oh, horrors. You know? So, you know, back on the 8 worldly concerns, the reputation piece. Yeah. So
and
just laugh at it.
Then people will start asking me what's wrong, and I really don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
all kinds of things. But we're so clever.
Thank you for the encouragement.
But I remember one. I like reminding people that they can lie down, because one very moving experience back at our old center was this one woman came. She only came one time, or maybe just a couple of times, but she mentioned that she had this some problem, and it was quite severe, and she said, I'm not sure how long I can sit. And fortunately, that day we had 3 cushions just right in a row. Right, she was sitting on one of them, and then when we did our little break, like that, I could tell that she was really in some great discomfort. And so I said, so you can shift your position, including lying down, and you should lie down if that's going to be helpful. And she did. And she reported afterwards that she really felt like it was such great kindness in the situation where everybody's trying to sit up straight and not move, make no funny bodily noises or anything like that. To say that, really this is a good thing to do. And so I just wonder, it's good. Then if you do that, then maybe somebody else will feel permission to do that. So.
I'd also like to encourage people not necessarily to do that. Because, as you said, because I think you can also learn quite a bit by being able to stay with your pain. And you definitely don't want it to hurt you, and you don't know. You just don't know. So you also have to make your own decision about that. But also to be able to stay with it and to also hear the stories you're giving yourself about that can be very helpful.
Yes. I've been emphasizing more the side of if you do have something that where injury is kind of likely, or something really is going to be made worse.
Right.
But on the other side of it really is that piece that Susan is talking about, that all these circumstances are actually can be very potent growth spots in our practice if we can really be with that.
Well, and I also think we also, within this container, we also know it has a definite end. It's not like it's going to go on forever, because we're going to have a bell that's going to take us out.
Yeah. A tangential story reminding me of Lama Eric Triplehorn's first forays in the Dharma. Now he's gone on to be an incredible translator and did 3-year retreat under what we would call challenging circumstances in India. And but he was talking about the first times that he went to a Dharma center. And he went to a center where part of the practice was sitting and just maintaining the posture for the duration of the center. No wiggly, no. And his knees were, he was a basketball player, so his knees are, and his legs are really kind of, so he's trying to do something like this. And I won't use the word that he was reciting to himself, but he was, ring the beep bell, ring the beep bell. He said that was his meditation. But yeah, a lot of people. I'm not one of them, but a lot of people can speak to the personal journey of working with chronic pain, and it's hearing people's stories and chronic pain of various types, whether it's all kinds. They're not just solely the physical dimension of it, but the sense of loss of ability, the sense that I'm not the person that I thought I would be. I don't have the capacities that I thought I used to have, and something's been suddenly taken from me. There are a lot of dimensions to it, a lot of dimensions. One thing that I often remind myself is that if I want my practice to actually be potent when I really need it, then I have to reflect on, well, one of those circumstances is the moment of death, or the process of dying leading up to that. And generally speaking, that's not a process that you can just make comfortable, make convenient, make pain-free. So if we actually want to be able to work with situations like that, and particularly at the point of dying and death, where there isn't a getting better, there isn't a, well, if I just do this, I won't screw up my back. Whatever it is, it's terminally screwed up. And so being with that, being with very challenging situations, is actually a critical piece of our practice. It's not just a matter of getting comfortable. But it requires, as you said, Susan, it's a personal decision to figure out exactly what you're going to do, because people can go to either extreme, the extreme of putting up with something just in order to be sort of a dharma macho idiot, or just kind of shrieking at the slightest bit of discomfort and doing something, saying, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this. It's some giant big deal. So yes, you have to figure it out. As they say, as it says in the mind training, of the two witnesses, rely on the primary one. And we are the primary witness in the end. So we do have to make these calls. Akiko.
At this moment, I am in the situation where there are so many things happening in my life, which sometimes, I don't want them. I am not willing them. I am not really willing to for them to happening, but it's happening. So it's like, I am kind of forcing myself to look more like deeply inside of me, and that kind of opportunity is happening at this point in my life, and it is very discouraging because like in more I read or study, about the cliche, all those things are happening, and I am really overwhelmed by, the things which I thought I thought until very recently I was a very simple person, but that it's changing, and I just don't know what to do, how to deal with this. Or like, should I be kind of cool to let it pass? Or, like, I don't want to be too overwhelmed, but at the same time, it's really overwhelming. And I don't want to be also like knocked down by this feeling that, oh, I'm such a bad person or something. But like all those cliches, and I didn't know that I have all these things, but I think apparently I do. What to do?
Well, now that you've joined our club,
Just enjoy it.
yeah, now we have more company now that you're with us. Yeah, discovering our patterns is when we have some kind of challenging situation come up, and then our unskillful we have unskillful ways of dealing with things, and when challenges become greater, then we keep trying a little bit harder with our unskillful methods until they become very obviously. Usually we can kind of we can say, if we usually we appear generally polite, but underneath we're really being very judgmental about somebody, but we manage to not show it very much.
Exactly.
So, but then something comes up, and then we lose our ability to kind of to hide. It's like,
Or look good.
We're not looking good anymore, and we're not even looking good to ourselves.
That's exactly how I am feeling right now.
That's progress.
Yeah?
Yeah, we have to see it's progress. It's progress. Oh. We're kind of running out of time, but it's progress to see. That's the point. This is not to look good, be nice, have friends, Dharma light. This is about dig in there, see what there is, and that's the chance to clean it up. That's why we have this concept of that's the teacher showing up. See that situation as the teacher showing up. I don't mean any person in the situation. The entire situation is the Buddha slapping you awake and saying, hey, you think you got it together? Look at this. And it comes when you're ready for it. You don't feel ready, but you are, or it wouldn't happen. You're strong enough. You're in the Dharma enough. You can do this. I know you. So just see it. It is impermanent, and kind of enjoy the crashy waves. It's all going to fall down into the quiet ocean. That's all that's happening. It won't last forever. Not even very long, probably. And it's not the same all day. I bet you're not overwhelmed all day long.
No.
Okay.
Like one day I am, or maybe one day I'm a little bit calmer, and then all of a sudden, from nowhere, this big ocean of irritation.
Yeah.
It's that.
Yeah. Tsunami.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah.
And it's like coming. And sometimes I'm like, first I'm trying to, so I should ride, go through this, but it's just too much.
But it's not, because here you are. You didn't drown. And you're seeing it. I mean, every time I take one of these kind of things to Lama Michael, he says, but Zopa, you're seeing it.
Uh-huh.
That's good. That's the work. That's the work. Just keep coming back to your true Buddha nature, read some Dharma, sit a little, go for a walk, take good care of yourself, do all that, but expect it. You know, one of the main sufferings of humans is uncertainty.
Uh-huh.
Boy, we do not like that. But in this very next minute, from me saying this, a major earthquake could occur and we'd all die in this building. That is a fact that it could happen. We hate that uncertainty. We keep trying to nail everything down, and we're so upset when it doesn't stay nailed down. This is the nature of samsara. So you're getting a really big, good look at it. And when those things happen, like when I got breast cancer, you wake up. You wake up. And so then you have a chance to go deeper into more truth, more compassion for others. We don't skim on the surface anymore like someone who has it all together. Someone who has it all together is just scary, frankly, to the rest of us, you know. When you meet someone who's just vulnerable and kind of slums around like I do, make mistakes, and, you know, that's more comfortable for us. Why? Because it's outside of that piece of reputation. We've given up trying to look good. And giving up trying to look good is a really nice gift to others so they can relax. You see? So you just be overwhelmed sometimes, and then not overwhelmed, and then overwhelmed, and then angry, and just say, hi, anger, boy, I'm really going at it right now. Just don't harm anyone. Put yourself in timeout. I had to do that recently with my grandkids. I did not put them in timeout. I said, Zopa is going in timeout. And I went to a room and shut the door. They totally straightened up. It was so interesting because they were so freaked, you know. I mean, I didn't scare them, but I saw I have to get myself in timeout, you know.
And sometimes the truth is very ugly. I mean,
yeah.
And yeah, like that's what I noticed lately. Truth is very ugly.
Truth is?
Yeah.
Can be.
Or maybe I
what you see.
Yeah, what I
ugly.
see.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. Just be kind with it. You know, we have to meet everything that comes. This is what we were working on this morning and in Shine tonight. Whatever comes, meet it. Your anger, meet it. With compassion. Ouch, this hurts.
Yeah.
I want myself free of it. Just meet it nicely, kindly. Thank you.
And don't expect everything to be all fixed.
No, there is no all fix.
And that we don't give credit to the small pieces that we do in this. We don't give credit to just not, if we can manage to not make the story in our mind bigger and worse, and just stay more with the feeling of it. The feeling may still feel overwhelming, but we actually have done something really remarkable. Yeah. So to take some rejoicing in and not making it worse. It's actually big practice. Thank you.
By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.
Thank you all.